Jointly brought to you by Centre for Non-Profit Leadership, RSM Singapore, and National Council of Social Service. Digitalization brings along many advantages, but it also introduces new cybersecurity risks and challenges. Charities are increasingly a hot target for data breaches as they hold large amounts of personal data. For sustainable success, charity leaders need to consider security and business continuity in the design of their IT systems and transformation strategies. This forum is organized to help our charities understand the role of executive management in driving a digital transformation journey and highlight the critical success factors and practical considerations when developing your own digital transformation strategies. Before we continue further, I would like to request your attention to some administrative matters. All attendees' camera and mic will be switched off during this forum. There will be a video and audio recording of this forum. Please use the Q&A chat function to comment or post your questions, and we will share the presentation deck to all participants after the forum. I shall now invite Ms. Elaine Tan, Head IT Services of RSM Singapore, to start her presentation as the first part of today's forum. Over to you, please, Elaine.
Thank you, Jensen, for the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eileen, and I'm the Head of IT Services for RSM and Stone Forest Group. I'm pleased to be here to walk with you on the journey of digital transformation, experienced by many organizations, regardless of their size, big or small. We will also be understanding the real definition of digital transformation, which is actually a culture of leveraging on the technology to disrupt your business. Then I would like to use a project case study to illustrate how your organization can adopt a 5-step digital transformation strategy. In this 5-step strategy, I will share the key consideration and expectations on the roles of executive management. You will also find these expectations, which are very fundamental or basic, but these are key success factors in any digital transformation projects that we have seen or undertaken. After my sharing, my colleague, Mr. Hoi Wai Kin, will share insights on how digital transformation projects can lead to a new set of cybersecurity concerns. He will also share ideas on how these concerns can be addressed to improve controls over confidential and personal data, security, and importantly, strengthen overall governance for your organization. We will then wrap up the seminar with a panel discussion. Leaders from different organizations will share experiences with their digital transformation projects and how they overcome some of these unexpected challenges. Let's now begin our seminar today by revisiting the fundamentals of digital transformation. With us, let us take a step back and reflect whether if you really know the difference between digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. Any organization, regardless of business nature, charities or retail or engineering firms, will always start with the owners adopting basic IT tools to operate their business. This status quo phase means using basic Microsoft Office, Outlook, and even teleconferencing tools such as WebEx and Zoom. When their business volume and headcount grow, the owners will implement an accounting, CRM, or even payroll software to digitize. This is where converting wet ink data into digital data, and this is digitization. The phase when organization recognizes the need to eliminate manual processes, consolidate processes between departments, and even automate many processes to increase efficiency is at the digitalization phase. This is really about having single source of data to manage business process, enhance data integrity, and importantly, happens when you leverage on technology to disrupt your own current business and transform your business. So this is how we move from status quo, digitization, and digitalization. The last phase is the organization can only be defined as being successful with digital transformation is when the organization, everyone from senior to junior positions, consistently display fundamental change in the culture and mindset to embrace digitalization and enable speed to value service to your clients, donors, volunteers, beneficiaries, and stakeholders. So whenever we say that an organization is at different phases of their digital transformation journey, you need to recognize which stage are you in and where do you want to be. So in summary, digital transformation is all about building a culture of leveraging on technology to accelerate the impact to processes and business models. The culture of repeating the cycle of change using technology will bring enormous effect to customer satisfaction, employee empowerment, business efficiency, and importantly, business value realization. In this slide, we are looking at what it means to digitalize. Many a times when I ask clients, do you know what it means to digitalize? They will say that, okay, it is maybe some workflow, is it infra, maybe some even can't articulate very well. So digitalization mainly focuses on 4 key areas. First, workflow systems. It looks at consolidating and automate processes using maybe ERP system or global process kind of configurations and settings. Infrastructure, the use of relevant cloud platform, the move from physical server to serverless, okay? And also security, the use of relevant cybersecurity solutions to protect confidential and personal data on the cloud when you have no control. And finally, above all 3 areas must be governed by a set of policies and procedures to give you a peace of mind. You can rely on the defined protocols to manage backup, patch management, upgrade, and ultimately IT and business continuity. And that is digitalization. So after understanding the key fundamentals of digitalization, let us use a case study to help you appreciate the challenges and expectations as an executive management or leader of an organization to succeed in your digital transformation projects. This case study illustrates the project phases and key challenges of a charity with about 100 employees and volunteers. The charity is going to embark on a CRM project to automate case management process. The objective of the project must be centered around now, where, and how. And now talking about recognizing if the charity is actually now at digitization stage, where, what are the ROI for this project? How? Determining the key deliverable to drive digitalization. So in this project, the executive management cannot just focus on automation to digitize manual forms or processes. He has to look at creative way to increase donation, improve overall corporate social image, and importantly, securing personal data on public cloud, which is beyond his control. So in this project, he has identified the stakeholders and working committee to drive the project. The working committee should also comprise key users and third-party vendors who can provide project management, advisory, and implementation services. In designing his digital transformation strategy, he has defined his KPI and success factors for the project. Let us now go through a 5-stage of digital transformation and identify key attributes in this digital transformation journey to manage the project. This is a typical 5-stage of digital transformation strategy, okay, that includes defining a project mission and vision. This is not your organization mission and vision. This is project mission and vision. Defining the digital strategy. How do you empower executive team? Developing capability to support and sustain this project. And lastly, design an ecosystem to manage post-implementation, which can then support IT and business continuity. In this first step of digitalization, let's go through the 5 stages in detail. And in this first step of digitalization, the executive management must have clarity of his responsibilities and KPI. I've seen many organizations having an exec management that just says, I have committed a project, I want you to complete, want the project committee to complete. But he has forgotten about his responsibility and KPI. So as an exec management, he has to give enough autonomy to project committee without compromising compliance and risk management. Throughout the project, he must constantly remind himself that if the tasks are driving digitizing or digitalization purpose, And this is an important reminder so that he can direct relevant and sufficient resources accordingly to achieve greater returns from the investment of the case management system. In this step, the executive management must adopt a SMART principle, S-M-A-R-T principle, for every project task to achieve transformation outcome for at least 3 years. SMART means project tasks must be specific, measurable, attainable, and realistic in terms of timeline, and time-bound, which means there must be clear expected completion date. After defining the project objectives to drive the mission of the charity, the next step is to define the digital strategy. And it is to executive management the most important phase of digital transformation. The executive management must be able to conceptualize the desired outcome and system of actions to complete a successful project. Besides getting buy-ins from the employees, he must develop clear and timely communication plan to donors, employees, and stakeholders on the purpose and progress of the project. This is an important phase where he must work alongside with the project team to resolve challenges, direct enough resources, make decisions, and give clarity to the project committee. Such behavior and attitude of the executive management will contribute significantly to the success of the initial projects, thus giving tremendous confidence to the project committee to face more uncertainties and greater challenges that will come alongside with the project. The next phase is to form a working committee of the project. For the project, in doing so, the executive management cannot just delegate responsibility to the IT team to offer advice to the project committee. In reality, this committee should make up of change agents from different specializations, people with different degree of familiarity with the operations, and not necessarily from the technology domain. The way we see is that many projects fail because organizations use IT team to make project decisions which are dependent on business and operations considerations. To maintain a balance of efficiency, compliance, and response and sustainability, the executive management must ensure proper segregation of roles and responsibilities for every committee member, who are the change agents from their respective team. In this step 3, the executive management and the project team must spend most of their time to break down silos. This means examining what are the gaps in the desired case management system. How can the gaps be minimized by consolidating processes or eliminating old ways of doing things? Step 4. To many of us, we may think that it should be the IT team to select the technology platform. Example, which CRM solution to go for the case management system? Should I have it on the cloud or full or on-premise? Who should be relying on hosting the server for me? However, from our past consulting experience, we know that it should be the executive management who have the most complete understanding of business risk, desired outcome, and objectives from the project. And they will be the best person to select the most suitable digital technology platform for his charity. So what does it mean? Of course, it implies that the executive management must be willing to invest enough efforts to understand the different platforms by meeting different group of people, learn from industry experts, and read about the technology before he can make a compelling decision. Once the platform is decided, the executive management will then be able to identify any gaps in the skill set of the committee and be resourceful to help the committee fill in the gaps with any external or temporary resources. In any project, it will never be sufficient to rely on capabilities of current project committee. So in this step 5, there is always a need to maintain a healthy ecosystem to overcome any unexpected project challenges. The emphasis to maintain ongoing due diligence checks on the technology vendor, evaluate the deliverables from every vendor, and maintain constant and open communication with the vendors can help you reduce overall project risk for the project committee. So after going through the different project phases, the 5 steps of the digital steps of digital transformation. Let us find out how and what you can organize at the different project pitfalls. Let's use a 3 Ps to do an illustration. So there are 3 key project considerations which I have categorized under people, platform, and processes, the 3 Ps. First, for people, we can classify into 3 main groups. First is none other than your employees. We should always appoint representatives from different departments who are familiar with the daily operations and firm's culture. Please do not appoint representatives who are new with you or who has very little operation control. These reps must have the autonomy and confidence to make decisions on behalf of the department and team. Next group will be advisors. This is a group of referees who play the role of your project mentors. These may be peers or veterans or friends from other organizations, and even someone from organizations like NCSS or MCCY. Lastly, vendors, which refers to leading practitioners from technology domain with sufficient advisory capabilities to share market trends, reliable enough to offer you advice, to solve technical challenges or constraints, and importantly, able to tap on their personal network or business network to help you find solutions or talents for your project committee. And that makes up the 3 groups of employees, advisors, and vendors in this people. The first P. Second P is about platform. When selecting technology platform, the executive management should focus on 3 key considerations: accessibility, compliance, and security. Let's take a minute here to elaborate further. Accessibility. It refers to how you can access to your system or data. How can you have greater returns on investment with the different software licensing models in the market? Just to let you know, common licensing model can include pure subscription with 1 month or 1 year commitment, or even perpetual licensing. Some licenses come with name or concurrent user license. So that's talking about accessibility. Compliance. How do you select platform that meets local requirements or statutory requirements? You do not want to be challenged by your IT auditor that you are hosting confidential or private data on unreliable hosts. Security. With platform, you can consider all data. You need to consider any security relating to data, user security, and not just look at them in silos. So platform in this case could mean AWS, Amazon. It could be Azure. It could even be a software service software like NetSuite, or even a Xero, for example. So this is what we call a platform. All right. So for platform, look at accessibility, compliance, and security. The last P refers to process. In any digitalization project, organization must first think of ways to standardize case management processes, case documents, user forms, screens, and configuration matrix. Once the case management processes are designed with this consistent approach, we can then look at how to maintain data integrity without data patching, data reconciliation between modules, or system and human intervention process. After the case management processes can be standardized to ensure data integrity, we can then look at automating the process without manual intervention. The process of automation is to eliminate unnecessary processes, combine steps, and simplify operations. With this, it will help us better understand how we can organize a typical case transformation project using the 3 Ps that will include people, platform, and process. Now, let me hand over this seminar to my co-presenter, Mr. Hoi Wai Kin. He will share how organizations should be protecting their data against cyber threats in a digitally connected world, especially when data are now can be hosted on public cloud, which is totally beyond the control of any organizations. Wai Kin, over to you, please.
Okay, thanks, Eileen. That is very, very interesting. I have already seen some questions coming in from the chat regarding your session, I think, which is very good. And I've actually seen some hands raising up. Please post all the questions onto the chat. after the presentation, I will invite all the panelists, to actually share the experience, to actually answer your question itself. And keep on coming. We are actually seeing a bit more, which is good. It's not easy, especially during this afternoon session, whereby all of us are Zoom at the comfort of our home, and we have actually so many things to do. And the last thing we need to do is to stay awake, and listening to Miss Eileen Tan, on the 3D itself. Okay, so before I actually start, let me just run through. Let me share my screen. I have decided to add in this slide. And before I actually move on to what Eileen has actually shared, on some of the pitfall, I think it's a very good refresher. She actually brought about this point called the digitization and digitalization. Okay, until now, I still having problem to pronounce the two Ds, especially the digitization and digitalization. Of course, the digital transformation is actually quite easy. So again, the word seems very easy. Okay, start with a D, start with a digital. But if you look at the digitization and digitalization, definitely there's a lot of things in there. And it's never an easy journey. So Eileen has actually shared, a particular case study, the conceptual, what are the different people that we need, what are the different committee, what are the different strategy, who should we actually involve. There's a lot of things, that actually need to be involved. And try pronouncing digitalization and digitalization, even when we try to pronounce the word, it's so difficult. Okay, so be prepared. When we actually want to move into this journey, when we want to move into this digital journey, it's very easy. It's just a 4-letter word, the 5 digit, okay? And there's a lot of things in which we need to consider. And that actually brings me in, okay, to a very, very important topic when we actually move into the digital platform, data protection. I believe all of you have already heard a lot. You have actually seen a lot. I'm not going to go in details, but rather some kind of a reminder, some kind of a refresher, for everybody. When we actually move into the digital platform, we must put data protection as one of our key consideration. And we can actually see organizations are becoming more dependent. Now we are back on the phase 2, heightened alert. And again, we are all being so-called semi-lockdown back at our home. And what we're going to do, we can't go out for more than, we can't dine in starting from tomorrow, and we have to take up our phone again. And we have to start to use the phone to order food. Okay, we have to go to the platform to actually order food. And again, all these things we're going to do more, we're all going more online, and we're going to order more things. And okay, actually, if you look at the whole thing, all this online platform, all this digitalization itself is actually making business process more efficient. Last time I have to call everyone, but now instead I just use a platform, I just use a phone, I just key in, and the phone can actually consolidate a lot of things, a lot of info. They can do a lot of repeatable kind of manual processes, and you can actually see that we're actually moving very, very fast, especially during this COVID, onto the e-platform or the digital platform itself. And we can actually also see government is giving a lot of support on this. They have been giving a lot of funding. They have been giving a lot of support, to SMEs, especially in the digital space. And the SME Go Digital is nothing new. It has been there actually for quite a number of years. And it's because of the COVID itself, the digital kind of a movement actually is faster compared to what it has been set up for. So I always like this word called, now when we are going to the digital platform, we find that we have more power. Okay, rather than just constrict to our individual business kind of operation, my digital platform or my digital kind of environment can actually help me increase the productivity, can actually help me perform the work faster, and more efficient. And of course, with great power, not only just come great responsibility, it will also have a lot of digitalization kind of a risk. And it's not only that, with poor internal controls, okay, it might lead your system or the vendors that you're actually contracting to system unavailable. What happens if you've got poor internal control that leads to data breach? What happens if there's a poor internal control that leads to system error? And not to forget, poor internal control that leads to cybersecurity incidents. All this will actually be able to disrupt all your operations. There have been so many case studies recently in the US, even in Singapore, whereby a lot of the data breach comes from the IT platform itself. So you can actually see when we are moving to the digital world itself, definitely IT systems are prone to IT incidents. And what Eileen Tan has mentioned just now about the digitalization kind of a strategy, IT, they can only, the skill set of IT is how to maintain operation. They might not have the skill set of how to ensure that the system are safe, how to ensure that the data are safe, how to ensure that they actually comply with rules and regulations. So again, if you are not careful itself, definitely it will have business disruption. Don't forget, any data breach will definitely have regulatory fines, especially for personal data itself. And not to forget, it will definitely impact our internal operation. And from here, there are some statistics that actually gotten from the Straits Times itself. You can actually see that the cyber attacks, coming from global is about 76%, Singapore 64%, for material breach 82 versus 68. Then the cyber attack, working from home, Singapore is one of the highest. And in Singapore itself, our average, is 3.3 breaches per organization versus the global itself. So when we're actually moving more to a digital environment itself, we have become too prone, to the usage of all this IT, and sometimes it has become a habit. And if we're actually unsure, if we do not stay vigilant, definitely things will happen. Like for example, COVID, if you just take 1 or 2 person or several person, if you are not careful, the whole thing will have to revert back to stage phase 2 again. And these are some of the top causes of cyber breach: process weaknesses. That's why I actually put in weak internal control as one of the key risks that leads to all the other breaches. Out of this security, a lot of the NPOs, non-profit organization, they have problems. So if you talk about their technology refresh plan, they will actually try to use the hardware and software to the maximum. Okay, but a lot of the time, all this maximum means that the warranty might not be there because it's still working, but the warranty is not there. Or end of life operating system. I've seen some NPOs, they're actually still using Windows 7. Third-party apps, they download freeware, they download shareware, to complement the internal operation. Ransomware is one of the up and coming, attack. Website, we have also seen a lot of website itself, especially on the NPO website, being replaced, being injected with some very malicious kind of a content, just to actually bring up some ideas, bring up some message, from the attacker itself. So of course, all these are statistics, but again, all these statistics actually mean something. For us, we have actually seen a lot of this thing on the ground, and that's why we want to actually bring this point on the data protection back, into when you're actually moving into the digitalization journey. This is definitely one of the key considerations. And these are some of the things reported to the CSA itself. You can actually see CSA is about cyber security agency, whereby they monitor all the cyber attack. Just talking about ransomware. Okay, ransomware is a kind of malware, that will actually encrypt your system, and then they demand a ransom. You can see it's actually going up from 2016, to 2020. You can see there's actually quite a huge jump from 19 to 61, but all those are reported cases. Okay, and most of them are actually affected SMEs. And don't forget, a lot of SME might not even report this to the CSA itself. So definitely the figures will be higher. And again, it's not just a cyber attack. You can actually see fraud, okay, internal fraud. So this could also be some of the things when I actually moved to the digital platform. Previously, it was a manual whereby there will be a people to actually fetch through a reviewer and approver to check the signature on that. But now when you actually move it onto the platform itself, okay, can it actually make a digit, okay, a decimal change, from $10, to $1, a decimal change? How do I actually find? How do I actually ensure that all these things can be actually picked up? And this is one of the very famous case about personal data being breached by a third-party vendor. So again, if you go onto the digital journey, if you actually outsource, I have actually seen one question coming in about software as a service. If I actually use all this, I think it's good, but when we rely too much on the vendor, can we be sure that the vendor is also have the same security control as what we actually require? This is just a compilation of some of the personal data protection breach that has been penalized. If you look at the on the top right, okay, on the top right itself, the protection obligation, till that there's already 127 cases, mean organization being fined, okay, for not protecting the personal data, either internally the HR data or the customer data itself or the organization personal data. So definitely we can see the trend will go up, it will never go down when we actually move to a more connected world. This is where people can also connect to us. So we need to get the basic right. The very important thing is I have actually mentioned about internal controls. So making sure that we get the right internal controls done properly. For example, make sure that we know what are the IT assets that we have. We need to set up a proper governance framework. Make sure we do a proper risk assessment and making sure that we have all the policy and procedure in place. And wherever any change that you make, whether is it internal, whether you want to upgrade a system or whether you want to move a manual process, to an online platform, making sure that there are proper change management process in place. And of course, security. I have actually seen a lot of MPOs, even on the ground, they do not have a proper antivirus in place. They're using free antivirus. Even the laptop is not patched at all. And not to mention that the office is actually quite open, anybody can actually go in. And another big problem we have seen is access control. We have seen so much on the MPO, non-profit organization itself, when we actually went to do the audits, a lot of the passwords are set to non-expire. Okay, and again, some users are giving full access rights, to the computer itself. And of course, last but not least, all these things will be there for a reason. But if there is actually a cyber attack, how do we ensure we can respond to the security incident properly, and also making sure that business can be continued, in terms of a cyber attack. So again, these are just some of the very, very basic kind of consideration, which is nothing new. Everybody knows about it. It's just that sometimes we just forget about it. Okay, so I think the purpose of this session, is just to do a reminder, a refresher course on it. So nothing is all about bad news. We are not always very pessimistic. The government also knows about it. So there are actually available support for charities. Tech and Go, the tech soup itself, they actually give funding, especially if you want to go on to the Google platform or Office 365 platform. If you go through a tech soup, you might be able to get some free email accounts. NCSS, there is this VCF funding that can fund up to 80%. And of course, iShine is one of the initiatives by Singapore Pools itself. So which means that they actually provide you a platform, a digital platform, whereby you can process all your work, you can do all your access, you can store all your files in this environment. It's actually a shared service, where all the security mechanism, all the security process is maintained by them. And what you need is actually just a laptop to connect to the environment, and you can do all the processing in there, and everything will be monitored by them. And also, for the Tech and Go, for the SSA itself, again, you can see they go up to 80 to 100% funding. They have a pre-scope kind of a professional help, whereby if you need whatever kind of service, you can go on to this Tech and Go, look for the service that you want, submit a request, and you'll be able to do the government will actually do the review, and they have an officer to actually contact you, and understand your requirement. And if it's actually approved, you get 80 to 100% funding. And VCF, again, VCF, you can rely on the NCSS VCF itself for consultancy work, for governance review, for regulatory compliance review, and also IT digital adaptation. So again, some of all these solutions, something like a CRM, donor system, whereby if you want to actually move, onto the digital platform, there are actually some funding available from NCSS. And the tech soup, just now I've actually mentioned, there are some kind of wide selection of donated IT solution, by Microsoft, by Google, and you can see also from Adobe, from Zoom itself, that you can actually leverage on it. And iShine, I have already shared, they do actually provide quite a lot of services on this platform. It's not only just the IT, but they got accounting, donor management, volunteer management, case management, and you can actually leverage on all these services on the platform. But of course, I think it actually comes with some cost, and you can actually contact them if you're actually interested and find out more how you can actually leverage on all these, we call it a virtual platform. So in summary, digital platform is all about business led. Okay, same thing as security data protection itself. It's not about the IT itself. It's about everybody responsibility, and you need to have all the aspect of the different requirement as what Eileen has actually mentioned. These are operating model actually cover vision, strategy, process, culture, behavior. It must be a top-down approach. Okay, if you just throw down to IT as what Eileen has actually mentioned, it will not go far. In the end, IT might not know the business requirement, might not know the organization requirement, they might not know the vision, the strategy itself. And in the end, what they can propose to you is just an IT solution. And for this digital solution, you need to be holistic. You need to actually cover. It's not only just for you. You need to be also for a supplier, for your partners, for a different stakeholder, and everybody actually need to be on the same platform. And the plan. Okay, so there's no best practice. Every organization is unique. The first very important thing is you must understand why you go on the digital platform. Okay, and what is your vision, what is your strategy, and what is you are trying to achieve. If you are just trying to go for the sake of going, without a vision or a strategy, in the end you fail, because in the end you just be an IT project. And lastly, you need to actually make sure you have a right rating between the technical things and also the business requirement. So not everything can be solved by technical. Some are actually business requirement, and again some are business kind of customization in which IT will actually need to support. So these are just 5 of the high-level summary about this digital transformation. And as actually mentioned, just try to pronounce digitization and digitalization. Even the pronunciation is actually not easy. So when we want to move on to this journey onto the digital platform, okay, once we master the pronunciation, we will be definitely able to savor the fruits of this digitalization or digital transformation kind of a journey. So just a quick 2 minutes about us. So RSM, we actually have a non-for-profit practices for non-profit organization itself. We actually provide audit, tax, GST, business solution, and advisory. And our NPO practices is actually headed by Ms. Usha. She's a partner and an industry lead in this NPO space. And Mr. Sovan Giang is a senior director and deputy industry leads in this NPO sector. So how can we actually help all the NPOs out there? We have helped a lot of NPOs. It's not just helping them to achieve the dreams. There's no dreams about going to the digital platform, but rather how to fulfill their vision, make sure they have a strategy, make sure that they're able to implement and meet the strategy to meet the vision itself. So from here, we do have a lot of experience in advising a lot of the NPOs or the SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises on the journey. And we do have a solution to actually help them to implement, advising them, help them implement to move on some of the platform onto the digital environment. And we are able to actually help to manage, some of all these demands, especially when you move on to the digital platform. Definitely there will be other areas of concern in which you definitely require a bit more assistance. So from here, RSM, we are the 5th largest accountancy firm in Singapore itself. Definitely, we actually know the NPO space well, and we have actually done a lot of projects supporting our NPOs, in this journey. So, data privacy and protection as a service. This is where my team is actually good at. We know the ground well, so again, we understand their requirement, and we have a different type of services that can actually help them, like the DPO filing. Help them to craft up a PDPA policy and procedure, help them to manage this data breach management framework, do a gap assessment against their current processes, against the requirement, training. We do a lot of training for the NPOs and SME itself. And if needed, we can also do this cybersecurity threat exercise. So this is Yimin Tan. She's the head of IT services, and this is actually me. I'm a director with RSM Technology Consulting. Okay, so I think that actually pretty much sums up the whole introduction, to this digital strategy itself. And so far, I have actually seen quite a lot of questions coming in, which is actually very, very good. We are very, very excited to to leverage on our experience or to share our experience for all the questions to be answered. Now, before I actually move to the next one, today we have actually invited 3 other speakers, okay, or 3 other panelists to help us answer some of all those, or to share their experiences on all those question and answer itself. And today we actually got Mr. Bruce Liu. He's a director of sector digitalization transformation with NCSS. Later, I'm going to invite all the panelists to give a short introduction to themselves before I start to arrow them, okay, all the questions that you have actually shared with us. And secondly, we have Mr. Thomas Tan. He's the head of IT and digitalization, from Care Corner Singapore. And last but not least, we have Mr. Tay Ning. He's a director, with MRS, RSM. And of course, me, I've already introduced myself. So now, without further ado, let me just throw the mic, okay, virtually, throw the mic to Mr. Bruce, okay. Maybe you can actually just do a quick 5-minute kind of introduction to yourself, and especially what are some of the things that you would like to bring up to the audience.
Thanks, Waikin. This is Bruce, right? As it's introduced, I'm the Director of Sector Digitalization and Transformation in NCSS, National Council of Social Service. So as the name implies, you can see that my main role is to help social service agencies and charities digitalize. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Waikin. So it's digitalize and not digitize, right? Yes. And I like to tell people that it is because of COVID that I have this job. I mean, this office or this unit was actually just started September of last year. So personally, before that, I was heading IT and all that in NCSS. And because of COVID during circuit breaker, quite a few charities and SSAs, right, social service agencies, have asked us for some help and guidance. And I just took it upon as something extra that I did. And sooner or later, for some reason, that became a full-time job in September when this became formal. So I think Waikin has introduced the Tech and Go initiative, the VCF are all under my unit. So if you have any questions on what are the schemes, funds, and support that we can give, that would be most welcome. So prior to running this outfit, I was actually running the enterprise risk management and business continuity outfit in NCSS. So as you can see, I'm a certified risk management and business continuity practitioner. At the same time, I'm also a certified meditation guide. So you can see last year was a field day for me, a field year for me. Half the time I'm preparing for the worst that can happen because of COVID, and half the time I'm chanting and praying for the best. So that's a short intro of myself. Thanks.
Hey, Bruce, thanks very, very much. I think maybe you brought up one point in which I think is very interesting, but it's not really related to the digitalization seminar. I think mental health, the meditation, to make sure that we really keep ourselves sane. We have been going in and out. For me personally, I try to, at my age, I try to do some light running around my area just to sweat it out, just to clear my brain itself. So I think that's actually good. Everybody should actually have a kind of a mechanism, to distress, to make sure we actually take care of our mental health. Bruce, thanks. So I think next one, Thomas. So maybe we'd like to invite Thomas, just to do some quick introduction of yourself and maybe some of the things you'd like to share with the audience before we go into the question and answer.
Thanks, Waikin, and good afternoon to everyone. My name is Thomas. I'm the head of IT and digitalization at Care Corner Singapore. Care Corner Singapore is one of the larger social service agencies in Singapore with 38 centers island-wide to support her vision of bringing care to every corner in Singapore. In my current role, I oversee the implementation of a multi-year digital transformation roadmap, which started in 2019. Prior to joining Care Corner, I was involved in various IT management roles, both locally and in the region, and with a key focus on enterprise systems such as messaging, collaboration, finance, HRMS, ERP, CRM, and also business transformation projects. Thank you.
Hey, Thomas, thanks. I think that's very interesting. I hear a magic keyword in which later most likely I will just ask you to share. You talk about the multi-year digital project, multi-year, it's a long one. Yeah, but later maybe I'll invite you to share on some of the challenges, maybe, especially multi-years, it's not so easy. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. Last but not least, Tay Ning. Maybe you want to again do a quick 5-minute introduction of yourself and what are the things that you're doing, and again maybe just do some share some of the things that you want to share with the audiences.
Sure. Thank you, Waikin. Hi, my name is Tian Lin. I'm the head of IT for business applications in RSM Singapore. Just to give you a bit of background, RSM Singapore, we have about 900 over in Singapore. That's head count itself. 13 business units. So we are looking at pretty large and diverse firm. So my role in the organization is basically to help each and every BU, or what we call business units, to digitalize. And of course, in the process, I think we have met with a lot of trials and tribulations. It's not smooth running all the time. Every time my hair turns gray, and I'm glad I still have hair in that sense. But it has been a fulfilling journey. Nevertheless, it's not easy. We have mapped out quite a lot of things that we want to do. The roadmap started in 2017-18. We do that kind of planning every year, but to say the least, things are changing and moving really very fast, especially last 2 years with COVID. So I think it is a never-ending journey. Nevertheless, like what Waikin was saying, cybersecurity is one of the biggest issue. It's like, everybody must learn to swim, right? You cannot be afraid of water, and use that as an excuse not to swim. So it's the same thing as well. I don't think any organization, whether for profit or not for profit, can afford to not digitalize. I think it is something that all businesses, organizations need to embark upon, but I think we need to do it with care, with a lot of caution as well in today's world. Yeah, Waikin, back to you.
Thanks, Tian. I think that is very interesting. So I think let me start with you now. Just now I was highlighting that I'll start with Thomas first, but you also brought out a magic keyword, in which I think this is one of the things I believe everybody will be very, very interesting. Other than cybersecurity, I think everybody knows, okay? Cybersecurity wise, okay, we can leave some timing on that, but I think we need to focus on today's main topic, okay, on moving, especially going into the digital platform itself, doing the digitalization. Of course, we know cybersecurity is one of the things, and we have seen some Q&A coming in about whether this platform is good or not. I think Eileen has already responded. Later, I'll just share. But I would like to ask you, before I throw this question to Thomas later, both of you have one similar problem, okay? So just now you mentioned that, again, you started in 2017, 2018. Okay, I know that we actually started quite a while back, and you say it's not smooth, okay? And maybe can you, just help us to share what is the one thing that you actually, during your this digital journey itself, what is one of the most challenging things that you encountered and how you can actually solve them? Before I throw it to Thomas, okay, which also share the problem that he has actually encountered. No, I'm just preempting him now. It's just that you are the one that was the last one, and it's good to actually start from the last one before I move it to Thomas.
Okay, sure. I think, to be really very frank, me as an IT person, I like to blame it on the users. Just like users like to blame it on the system that's giving the problem. No, I'm just joking. But anyway, the whole idea about this transformation journey is that everybody must stick together. Everybody must be in the same boat, sharing the same vision, objectives, business goals together. And once you have that, whether you call it digitalization or you call it anything you want, business transformation, the whole organization can move forward together. And I think I cannot de-emphasize that, because in the early part of our journey, I would want to say very frankly that there are some non-believers, let's put it that way. People who say that, yes, let's do it, but that's by saying only, but the heart is still like, let's stick to whatever that is proven to be good, and let's continue doing that, because we need our revenue, we need our fees coming in and so on. So I think the early part, we did have a lot of learning. The learning really comes from people. How do we work with people? How do we work with leaders who need to see digitalization and business transformation as a key part of their business goals or their organization goals? Because if you don't have that, you don't align in that, no matter what you do, you can force down any system, but nobody's going to use it, right? Let's put it that way. So I think to say the most important, I think that is one of the most important key. Although I come from IT, we can solve any IT problem. I always tell people that we can build any system for you. But the truth is that if there's nobody's going to use it or nobody's going to support it, then I'm not going to do it for you, right? Yeah, I can hope that answers and shares.
No, that's actually very, very good. I pick up some key learning points before I pass it to Thomas himself. And Bruce, for your information, later you also need to answer one question about challenges. Please be prepared. Okay, so one of the things that I have actually learned, okay, I think Tian, what you actually mentioned is good. A lot of learning. When we move on to this area, there's a lot of things that we need to learn, and we always fall down and then pick up again. And you also brought up about how to work with people and leader. So again, when we move on to this journey itself, it's also about people skills, and how to actually communicate efficiently or effectively. And lastly, I think you also brought up a very good point. You need to meet the business kind of a goal, the objective. So I think that is very interesting, and to me, I'm also learning along the way. And I believe the panelists, you can actually take down these 3 points. Definitely, it will help. Now, Thomas, same thing. I'd like maybe you can actually share with us for this multi-year kind of a project itself. Again, definitely you have seen a lot of problems, and maybe you can also share with us one of the main challenges and how you can actually solve them.
Thanks, Joaquin. I fully agree with Tian Lin on the part about mission, right? You need to know why you're doing it, right? And to make sure that everyone is on the same page, especially the people at the top. Right, so I think over at Care Corner, it was really a blessing that we started this journey in 2019, even before COVID. All right, and I think at that level, the management team has already decided that they want to digitally transform Care Corner. Right, so when I joined them, it was really more to flesh out the roadmap. All right, because I've already gotten the executive backing, right? But that's not to say that there's no challenge, right? Even in the execution of that. One of the main challenges that we had at the start was not having the right vendor partnership, right? Now, I think it's very easy to just select solutions, right? I think that's not difficult, but selecting the right partner to work with you, I think that is something that is a little bit more tricky, all right? So in terms of having a partner that's really prepared to walk through with you to understand and not just simply come in and then implement the solution, right? So I think one of our first learning points was to really to engage with the vendor more, all right? And to really have more in-depth discussion about what we're trying to achieve, as opposed to just kicking off the project and then starting, right? So subsequent to that, I think we really did much better in that sense. And then, of course, I think for all our projects, we actually start with the business process optimization. All right, this is very important. I cannot also de-emphasize this. Right? If you do not look at the current process and then think about what you need to do differently going forward, and simply applying the digital technology, it's not going to work, right? It will become just a digital version of your current processes. All right. So what we did for our projects really is to sit down, have a business talk with our business users, right? Talk about their processes. In our case, we talk about like client management, right? We talk about how do we then onboard the client, okay? What is their user journey with us? All right, so from there, we talk about that all the way to reporting, and then we cover the entire blueprint. All right, so, and then with that, we talk about how we can now use technology to facilitate that, right? So we start with transforming the way we look at our current business process, and followed by the technology solution. So that actually makes it easier for us. But we're just only about like maybe 40% in our journey, right? We have another 60% to go. But that is the kind of approach that we foresee will also happen throughout the rest of our journey, right? So I hope that helps.
Okay, Thomas, I think that is very good. You brought up a few key points in which I've actually noted it down. having the right vendor and partnership, I think that is key. Engage the vendor more in that discussion. That is also, I find, is important because again, if you actually get a vendor in, supposedly they should be very experienced. They should be able to provide you with a more kind of a sharing of what others have done, what are the pitfalls, how they can actually make your journey even easier. This actually let me thought of a personal experiences whereby when we renovate our house, we get a designer in to come in, we just tell them the expectation. And in the end, when we come back, after the house is renovated, we find it's not what we want. Okay? Because there's no communication, there's no discussion. And again, most important thing is that no in-depth, discussion to really understand what you want. And the most important thing is that, you did not ask your wife, is this really what you want? That is the business, right? So that is the business kind of process. So in the end, we must ask the wife, we must ask the children, this is what you want, would it actually help you or not? So I like your point about start with business process, in which I think Tian-Ling has also highlighted, it's actually very, very important, to achieve the business goal. So thanks, Thomas. Bruce, so for you, let me ask you a different question. So for Tian-Ling and Thomas, they come from the end user side, okay? And now from you at the NCSS side, I believe that you have actually seen a lot. And maybe can you actually share again what you have, based on your experiences with NCSS itself, what are one of the major challenges, of the charities, the SSA or the MPO itself, and maybe again, what is advice, from you to them to resolve this problem?
Thanks. Actually, I must caveat by saying that not every SSA is as lucky as Care Corner to have Thomas there. He knows exactly what to do and all that, and how to manage vendors and starting with DPO and all that. So
okay, that is maybe the problem, the major problem that they're facing.
Exactly. So I mean, incidentally, we did a social service sector survey earlier part of this year. So we did ask a lot of SSAs, what are the main challenges they face when it comes to digitalization. So typically, and this is not the only unique forum that we have that this three themes keeps coming up. So typically they will say lack of funds to sustain the transformation, lack of manpower, people like Thomas and all that, right? As well as a lack of know-how. So I mean, so how from an NCSS perspective, then if these are the top three challenges, that's how we try to help our SSAs. So in the lack of funds, we have government grants, as you have seen, right? We have pointed out, SMEs Go Digital, we have a similar scheme for SSAs and for charities. So funding between 80 to 100% and all that. So hopefully that helps. Lack of manpower is, we will then, of course, have a 3P kind of like, the 3P different from Eileen's 3P. This is people, public and private sector, right? Where we get both volunteers, we get vendors and all to come in, chip in, everybody do a little bit, and then help offset the lack of resources that SSAs might have. And then lack of know-how would be engaging partners like RSM, of course, as part of our advisory panel or panel of consultants. Then, in all areas from digital implementation to strategy planning to cybersecurity and data protection, like what you have said, right? Clearly, these you will provide the very good starting points for them. And hopefully, some of the things we try to do along the way also is to make sure some of these skills that you have, not just skills, but also mindset, the way you do things, like you mentioned agile and all that, right? Some of these things, the way you do things and skill sets you have, also kind of osmosize to the SSAs, hopefully, so that they can pick up some of these. Of course, we do also try and inculcate learning culture, be it through formal learning or networks or kind of like webinars like this, right? They kind of help SSAs from all stages and of course all ranks to pick up some of these skills and knowledge, so that if nothing else, even if this is not their core training, as Thomas has mentioned, when they talk to vendors, when they talk to partners, they speak somewhat the same lingo, so they are not taken for a ride, or worse, like you say, don't communicate, and then what comes out at the end, after 6 months or 9 months, is something that's completely out of expectations. So I think this by and large really sums up what Tian-Lin and Thomas have mentioned as well.
Hey, Bruce, thanks. I pick up two words in which I find that is very key, mindset. Everything is about mindset, attitude, right? And the skill set. Even for us, in my company itself, we are so-called inverted comma being forced to keep on learning, keep on upgrading. I was a security specialist. I have been doing cyber security, information security for almost 10 years. Then PDPA comes in. PDPA is all about data protection. Of course, around it, there's a lot of obligation. Again, I need to top up my skills. And now with this digitalization kind of transformation, I will also need to upgrade myself because I know that a lot of organizations are moving from in-house, on-prem to SaaS model, to cloud model, to vendor managed model. So again, what are the kind of different risks that they will actually pose to the organization itself? So I think the mindset of keep on learning. I know that everybody is very constrained, with the resources that we have. Like for example, you talk about manpower. Yeah, we have been on the ground. We know that some SSA, they don't even have a full-time IT, and some of them, the IT is only 50%, and some of them are actually outsourced, So there's a lot of different variation. But as long as the organization is committed, I know that this is a journey for me. As you mentioned, there's so much help, out there. Definitely, there will be a lot of advantage, to actually help them. Yeah. So other than the challenges itself, I have actually just saw one note on Q&A. I believe that is also another big challenge. But this big challenge, I believe maybe Thomas might not encounter in your current organization because you already got a full management kind of support, okay? And Tian-Ling, I know that you have been moving a lot of digital projects, and of course the board, bosses, all those will definitely support. And Bruce, basically, you have actually also seen a lot. This could be one of the major problems is how to get the board buy-in. So this question actually comes in nicely. Also to add in one of the challenges, that we actually face. So the question actually goes like that. And it actually says that most of the organization move through IT and digitalization in a very piecemeal manner. Okay. The struggle is normally at the board rather than at the ops level, which is true. Okay, management strategy vision, as what Eileen has mentioned. And any advice for the board in the social sector. And just now I saw Eileen Tan mic actually was unmute for a while. So I think most likely, even though she's not part of the panelists, but I think we can actually invite, the speaker, as I say, maybe just to provide some kind of your thoughts before I ask Thomas, Bruce and Tian-Ling to also share, their stories.
Sure. I think it was discussed in today's session about the role of the executive management. In fact, if you realize, actually, it's not easy to be an executive management in any of the charity organization because from the 5 steps journey, if you look at it, the strategy, their involvement are very different and they complement the project team. So to answer your question is that, yes, the struggle is always at the board, but putting aside the financial budget, putting aside the talent, that you probably don't have, I guess is importantly what the gentlemen have mentioned here, the panelists. I think the mindset change is important. And also how the board would be able to involve in such digitalization project. I believe Thomas, Bruce, in charities, you probably know that a lot of the board, when they see technology transformation project, they will always pass it to the IT team, right? Yeah, this is always what we see. But generally, that should not be the case. Yeah. And so to answer the question is, board will need to have the buy-in. They will really need to internalize the need for digitalization or digital transformation. They need to be heavily involved in the 5-step strategy. If not, this project is not going to win. Yeah. So that's my advice. Yeah.
Thanks, Eileen. So maybe next one, I'll invite Thomas. Maybe in your previous experiences, when you actually try to push some things through, you might have actually experience in this area, and maybe you want to actually share, how you can actually convince or upsell all these things to the board so that they can invest more resources, to support all these digital programs.
Thanks, Waikin. Well, I guess there's no shortcut. You need to have the conversation about. I think early on, Tian-Ling mentioned this, right? It's not about whether you want to learn or not. You need to learn how to swim, right? So I think going forward, if you ask me, that conversation and mindset shift needs to take place first at the level, right? And And I don't think it's that difficult to engage in that kind of conversation, right? Basically, it's about whether you are investing for the future. And I believe that every board has that intention of helping and supporting the charity to thrive, right? Not just survive the COVID-19. So I guess it's a matter of really sitting down and talking about how that can come about, right? And then securing that support. All right. I don't have any playbook to tell you how you can have that conversation to make them, suddenly be enlightened. But I guess a lot of times it's about education, right? Educating in terms of what we're trying to do versus what really needs to happen. All right, because that as we can see from the questions and all that, there's a lot of concern about PDPA, data security, and so on and so forth. And we haven't even talked about investments, right? What kind of investments? Because digitalization, while necessary, is not cheap. All right, and it needs to be invested in order to be sustainable in the long run. Otherwise, you get a project that's half supported and then it just dies off, right? So I guess it's important to really have that kind of conversation. I don't know how long it took for my Care Corner board to come to this position. It happened before I joined them, right? But previously, I was also involved in the board of an IPC. It didn't take us too long to understand and agree that we need to invest in a new way of doing things, right? So that happened way before COVID-19. Right, but I think we all know that status quo is not acceptable. All right, so we have that conversation. I think some of you might have a better idea about how to, what should go into that kind of conversation. All right, or whether no future board connect forum can talk about those things that really help board understand what needs to happen, right, in such a journey. So that we are covered on all fronts now. Thanks.
Thomas, I think again, I hear something in which I pick up three very good keyword: education, keep on reminding, and we need to be persistent. We need to be naggy. Okay. So we need to keep on nagging and be persistent, educate, the board to tell them, what is the benefit. And one fine day, they might actually, I should not use the word inverted comma wake up, but rather they find that there's a benefit. Definitely, there's a benefit, for the long run itself, especially for the organization. This is where they can actually base on what they understand previously and give the support. And the last one, I think you actually mentioned clearly sustainability. So I think that is also another key thing that I've actually captured from you, especially when we actually talk to the board. Nowadays we talk about ecosystem, sustainability. Yeah, I think that's important. And Tian-Ning, so I know you're in-house MRS, but I know because we work together, and I know you always had a hard time, with our ESCO. Sometimes, just having to persuade them, to bring an idea across for a project that will actually bring benefit to the firm. Even for RSM, we encounter the same problem, and that's why we also know this very well. And maybe again, you can actually share, especially for the board on the ESCO members itself, and your actually capacity, as a IT director to manage the whole application itself. How do you actually engage them, and how do you actually try to convince them that the investment for this digital platform or for this digital kind of a project, will definitely bring a benefit to the whole firm?
Yep. Okay. So I think again, reflecting on the early days of the digitalization process, I think we didn't really give too much on that thought. We just assumed that if you build the system, people will start using it. But that is a wrong assumption. I think all IT persons and technical persons have this kind of impression that when you build a good system, everybody will start using. I think that is a wrong impression. So as far as the board is concerned, I think the whole idea is to be able to engage them and to relay to them why people are using, not using certain things, and be able to have that kind of KPI to go back to the board again to say that, hey, this is what we have done. This is how people are using. These are people who are not using, and why are they not using, and so on. So with this kind of constant discussion and this kind of sharing, I think the confidence will also build up even from the board perspective. I mean, you can imagine that some of them perhaps are not even IT savvy. Let's put it that way. Most of them are not. So how do you make them realize that by deciding on this digitalization process and path, they have made the right decision? How can you enlighten them to say that whatever you have done links to the results and then contributes to the KPI of the organization? I think this is a part that whether you're the IT lead or your transformation lead and so on, you must be able to connect the dots. Let's put it that way. And if you can do so, I think the path will be smoother. Again, I don't say that it is a bed of roses. It is a never-ending journey. But I think with this, the board is an ongoing. It's just like the wheel. It just keep on turning and turning. Right? It's being progressive in that sense. Yeah. So, Joaquin, that's my take on this.
Yeah, thanks. I know it's not easy. Sometimes when I used to know you, your hair is black now. After so many years, it's white. So I know you have been trying so hard, just to convince, the board, give me 5 cents more, please, to implement this, and you have to go around back, borrow or steal. That's a joke. Okay, so I think I hear you regarding the 2 key points that you actually brought out, connecting the dot, using the experiences, from other organizations, which is true, like RSM, your accountancy firm, we should actually learn from others, what other firms are actually doing, and because of that, they actually streamline the processes, definitely we can bring it on. And second, I think is KPI, which is true objective. What we have actually set up beginning, we talk about the business objective. And also Thomas has also mentioned about business processes. So again, no matter what we actually implement, we must go back to this KPI to make sure that, we can justify not only to the board, to the management, also to the different stakeholders that has actually invested the time, in this digital journey, that all these things are actually helping them, rather than in the end ended up as a white elephant.
Yeah, maybe just let me have a quick point. I think I just saw another question coming in. I think talk about risk and so on, but I think the whole idea when we start our journey also is to look at some quick wins. Quick wins doesn't mean easy, but quick wins in terms of perhaps success that people can see immediately that whatever we do from the digital or IT point of view benefits the usage or the data or the processes. If we can have that kind of perspective, and people will feel that they are not wasting time, right? When people don't feel that they're wasting time, naturally such positivity, will then transform the whole organization, and sooner or later the board will feel good about it also in that sense. So I think it's all well connected, everything. So start something, but start small with a clear objective. I think this is probably one of the things that you probably want to do if you are just starting on this journey or initial parts of your journey. Thank you.
I think that's a very good point. I remember when I first helped all the MPOs itself, a non-profit organization, regardless of which sector. 3 years ago, when we go in to say, hey, look, cybersecurity is very important. You have to make sure that all these things are in proper. But a lot of the time, bots doesn't even have an idea what is cybersecurity, and they don't even have an idea what to look out for. And in the end, they just throw the word down to their management, hey, do a cybersecurity review. And the management said, what is a cybersecurity? What is a review? What are the things that I need to do? So, but after 3 years, so far now, when I actually attended most of the board itself, regardless whether it's an MPO, not MPO, SMEs, or even MMC itself, a lot of the board members already have this idea. They know that cybersecurity is important, PDPA is important. Please commission an audit. Please do a health check. Please let me know the status. As a director itself, I'm also be responsible for the governance. So I believe, again, digital transformation now, this is just these 2-3 years. But because of COVID, definitely there will be a lot of discussion, a lot of awareness being built. And it might not be now, that the board of directors are giving a lot of support down to the management, because the management might have others priority to resolve. But definitely, if we keep on, as what Thomas said, keep on being persistent, educate them, let them know the KPI, let them know the benefit. One way or another, one fine day when they actually hit onto this topic, they will have some kind of concept they'll be able to support fully from there. And maybe for Bruce, again from you as from the NCSS kind of a level, right? So you have actually seen on the ground, the Thomas itself, Kenny, they have all these little tools, of them to actually help them, especially to justify to the board, to nag the board, to let the board know KPI, to let the board, push through this journey, so that it can be a bit more efficient. It can actually increase productivity. So NCSS, I know just now you mentioned that you have actually done webinars, you have done a lot of such seminars, surveys, you understand the problem. So what other things that you think that on NCSS kind of a level, right, can actually do more to engage the board, okay, so that they can actually have a bit more mind share, especially when it comes to all these digital transformation projects.
Okay, Wykin, maybe I differ a bit from your questioning. I will speak on a personal experience rather than on an NCSS experience, right? Because I think Tian Lin mentioned, and you also mentioned, right, that a lot of board members may not be IT savvy, they are not technical people, so there are a lot of unknowns. And clearly, and you also mentioned 3 years ago, cybersecurity is something new. I personally find it whenever I go into a new area, a new space, right? Self-awareness is very important. So some of you may be familiar with the Johari window model of self-awareness, right? What is known to self and unknown to self, and what is known to others and unknown to others, right? I mean, I won't give a lecture on Johari window right now, but clearly, I mean, and I'm speaking to board members. So recognizing what you know and what you don't know versus what others know and don't know about digital transformation, I think that's a good starting point. Then that helps map out what are your blind spots, what are your areas and open areas that you can develop. What are the hidden areas that you may not know but others know more, and then that again would be areas that you want to seek help in, seek resources in, and of course we want to minimize all the unknown areas as far as possible. So I mean, without going to too much details, if you have some form of model to work with, and to me a Johari window is a very good model when it comes to awareness of what to develop and what to be aware of, especially when it comes to managing risk, right? Like you say, that could be a good starting point. Of course, now taking wearing my hat from NCSS, we have in fact, incidentally, we have a new unit. It's called the Board Development Unit. I'm not running that unit, so it's by another colleague. But there will be initiatives when it comes to leveling up board capabilities in general, not just in areas of digitalization, but in general. I think all this will help because I think digitalization cuts across many different domains, and going forward, every kind of new skill set, every kind of new thinking, and kind of new approach that we take would have some form of digitalization in it, and then that'll be useful. And thanks.
Yes. So far, I think we have actually heard a lot, especially in terms of all the challenges. We actually pick up quite a lot of good key points, and also we went all the way to the board level, and we actually all the way down to the IT level, to actually implement all this security itself. So I again, maybe okay, it'll be good. This is my own thoughts. It's not a question. Suddenly it just came onto my mind, right? It's good to maybe ask Thomas, maybe can you actually just share one project that you have actually implemented successfully, and how it actually helped the organization after the project has been successful.
Sounds like a job interview.
Oh yeah, huh? Oh yeah, correct. Huh? That's good, huh?
Thanks, Wykin. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk about projects. Yeah, I've been doing projects my whole career, basically different kinds of projects, progressively from small, projects to large ones like ERP, CRMs, and all that. I would say that I wouldn't say that they are all very successful, but one thing that I understood from all this project experience is that these are never technology projects. they are all business projects because they all exist to meet certain business needs or challenges that we are trying to address. All right. So like what Eileen shared earlier on, it's important to get the stakeholders involved, right? It should not be IT department that is trying to drive this implementation. And like what Tianlin say, even if you build it, nobody will use it if they are not convinced that this is something for them, right? So I guess the common thread that I have across my entire career is to say that don't try to build systems for people, right? Get them involved, co-create, and then we talk about the solution, right? So with that kind of partnership, it actually turns out very well, right? In the sense that even if it is a multi-year project, cross-functional, right? It doesn't matter because it's not an IT project, all right? It is something that we have equal stake in, right? In wanting to see this thing work, right? So along the way, when you talk about, UAT, you talk about training, everyone is so excited to be part of that, right? Because they know they have a stake in this whole thing. Right? Whereas if it is the old mindset of saying that this is an IT project, let IT department drive it, I think the kind of project will fail. Unless you're talking about buying laptops, I think that one is okay. Hardware is a very easy thing to handle, but when you talk about services, you talk about software, you really need to start it right by making sure everybody understands that this is a business problem we are trying to solve, and therefore get started right from the start. And not only when the solution has been chosen, all right? I hope that helps.
Maybe,
Yeah,
sorry, I just want to, because Thomas reminded me, he said it feels like a job interview. Then he reminded me that he's actually on our NCSS Sunray program. So I can now know why he aced the interview and able to be selected for our Sunray program.
yeah. Okay, then in that case, maybe again, Bruce, let me throw the interview question to you. Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe you can, I think Thomas has actually shared one thing which is very key. If you just buying laptop, anybody can do. Okay, that one is the most easiest thing to do. And maybe again, from your personal capacity, or maybe from what you have actually seen, maybe can you actually share one project, that you have actually seen that has been implemented successfully?
A project, actually, there are quite a few. And okay, I'll generalize because I also don't want to pinpoint names, right? I think even I would actually paint two ends of the spectrum. I know Thomas mentioned about buying laptops, it's a very low hanging fruit. But I also seen SSAs that struggle with buying laptops. They are not sure what kind of specs they should go for, particularly last year, right? Everybody going to Zoom and doing video conferencing. If they buy a laptop that is low in specs, it may not fit the purpose of video conferencing. And then if they get the lag, they're not able to do telecounseling and all that. So that becomes a problem. So even then, they may also need some of guidance depending on the level of complexity and sophistication of the staff within their organization. That's one. On the other end, I also have seen some SSAs roll out chatbots using AI and all that because they want to do more triaging. They have limited manpower when it comes to counselors and all that. But with all the, I mean, this is a very recent case, right? With all the mental health issues, particularly with youth and all that, you can see that more youth and in general, right, want to seek help. Then how do we augment some of that with technology using AI, doing some triaging, doing some low-level mitigation before it escalates to something more serious? So some SSAs have done that as well. What I've seen really is, I think Thomas has already mentioned, he coming from SSA, and I wouldn't, of course, he's one of those SSAs that have successfully implemented, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't be here, right? In a sense that, having a clear mandate, having a clear mission, having clear task lists, and driven by, of course, executive sponsorship, as well as the right person, and in this case, of course, Thomas or somebody else, right, who has to know how, both the business side as well as the IT side helps a lot. And he also alluded in one of the later points, vendor management. Having a vendor that understands the use cases will accelerate the process of a successful implementation. And so what we try to do, I mean, as NCSS, is if we see enough of these use cases, we will try and do the awareness and education in both ways. It's a bit of a translation, it's a bit of matchmaking. You know, we're like a matchmaker. We're not Tinder, we're the old school one. We do it manually, more or less. We speak to companies, technology companies, present them use cases, help them to understand what the use cases is. If enough of these come up, then they can also standardize some of their processes, some of the protocols, so that helps. Separately, of course, with SSAs, we handhold them. You know, if they didn't have any experience working with vendors, with technology, we try to impart some of those skill sets either through ourselves, with our own staff, or through consultants like yourselves, right? And then that also helps to smoothen the process, and hopefully that reduces both resistance from both sides, resistance internally, externally, and that helps, like you said, to ensure a higher success rate in technical implementation.
So Bruce, I think yeah. So you mentioned vendors. I think for those VCF funded kind of a vendors, right? I think you have already reviewed and you have also pre-approved some kind of a solution, yeah, and vendor itself. So definitely that will actually help, you know, to cut the things down because they really know what are the requirements. I think that is very useful. Now let me throw it back to Tian-Ling. Definitely, you might have a lot of things to share. And Tian-Ling, maybe you can actually share one project, you know, that you have done internally for RSM itself that actually achieved your KPI. And I believe definitely it might or might not be related. You know, I know that we don't write AI bots, you know, just to check how are you today. Maybe you can actually share one of the journey that we have actually taken, you know, that actually meet the KPI.
I'm not sure whether many of you here have heard about something called RPA, which stands for Robotic Process Automation. Just a very quick concept. RPA basically is a small little software that you wrote, right, as robots, and small little robots are released to help humans to do certain work repetitively. So for example, let's say you need to do a certain submission to a government agency on a very repetitive basis. You can write small little software called RPA to mimic the human behavior. Let's say, for example, to key in a certain spreadsheet into a government agency system. So RPA was started in our organization about three years ago. We championed that because we felt that that is something that organizations, big and small, whether you're from profit or non-profit, we can use. So it was a long journey because it is really a trial and error. We wrote and we try and so on. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that sometimes the path of IT is not so clear. We know that we want to do something. We know that we want to automate something, and we know that this tool will bring us there. But as to how and why and how to do it, and who to do it, sometimes some of these things takes years. In our case, 2 to 3 years in that sense to mature. So what I'm trying to say is that in order to achieve that kind of success, of course, you must have clear goals. You have to have clear KPIs and objectives, but it takes a lot of cooperation between us, the users, the management as well, to understand that RPA is useful for us. And from there, we sort of like move along, give it a try. And the good part is that people are willing to try. If they can see that there is light at the end of the tunnel could be very far and very deep. But if people can see that light at the end of the tunnel, I think the chances of winning is really quite high. And the other part is, of course, constant update, constant progression, and that people are kept aware and abreast of the progress that's made, or the issues and problems that are made as well. So again, back to this note about RPA, I urge that a lot of organizations should start looking at RPA, because that is a small and easy thing that you probably can achieve. And with that, maybe some of the manual processes that's bogging down all of us, you know, every organization, I think especially MPOs, with all the paperwork, you know, something that you can seriously look into as well. Yeah, Waikin?
Yeah, thanks. I do see the benefit as a user coming from the other side. Yeah, I do see the benefit of RPA, at least it's streamlined. You know, some of things previously it was very manual. We have to submit email, you know, have to write down on the form, you know, have to enter here, enter there. And I wasted a lot of time, you know, just to set up the process. But now with RPA, everything is actually one point of entry. So the output actually is actually quite fast. So last time it takes about 4-5 man days. Now at least within 1 man day or 2 man days, they're able to get the result out. I think that's actually very, very good. To me, personally, this is just my personal view. Sometimes as a user, we must give credit, right, to the IT. Well done, yeah. Okay, now I have actually seen one question in which I like it a lot. This is not an easy question to answer. Bruce, just now you have actually give some highlights to read, right? We have a lot of questions coming in about talking that they are a small setup. Okay. So they say some of them 30, should they use this, should they use that? Some of them, do they have actually higher requirement, lower requirement itself? So I think the question, let me ask Bruce this. Other than getting the benefit, definitely you have given some experience. Thomas has given a lot of sharing. Tanning, have given one case study. So this question is about for smaller setup. You have actually said that you've done a survey. Yeah, so the main challenge, lack of fund, lack of manpower, lack of know-how, definitely all these are the problems, for the smaller setup itself. So for smaller setup, right, kind of organization, will it be wiser, okay, to use the existing process instead of becoming more digital? Because small, correct. So instead of using spreadsheet, I just use spreadsheet. Why do I want to go onto the platform? Why do I want to do this and do that so much things? So I think this is a very relevant question, because again, digitalization is not one size fits all. Definitely, different organizations have their own requirement. Maybe you can actually share some thoughts, and later we can run through Thomas. Then after that, Tanning on myself.
Okay, thanks. I think that's a good question. Actually, okay, what the phrase that comes to mind is a very colloquial phrase lah. It's something that goes like small can do small things, right? Right. There's this saying, right? Small things, can be done for small things, right? So I'm not sure whether you're aware. Last week we had the social service summits. So this is more skewed towards the social sector lah. So we had a social summit. We launched the industry digital plan for social services. So there we recognize, in fact, I think by and large, if I'm not wrong, I think 70% of our SSAs can be considered small, with less than 50, headcounts and all that. So suffice to say, when we produce a document like that, right, the industry digital plan, we want it to be able to apply to most of our organizations, SSAs. So it applies to small ones. And you can see we have kind of segmentized technology, that small SSAs can adopt as foundational technology. You say spreadsheets. Actually, spreadsheets inherently, as you mentioned, it carries its own risks, carries its own production overheads, right? It is not as user. Sometimes you misplace something, then productivity time is lost and everything. So, and I think earlier on there's also questions about using SaaS, software as a service for HR, accounting, and all that. So those are readily available and those are not expensive. In fact, you don't need any digital know-how to adopt those. In fact, you just need business know-how, whether it suits your needs. If you are a finance person, whether the accounting software you mentioned Xero before, right? Whether it suits your needs. That's one example. If you are doing donor management, whether a certain CRM like Salesforce or that suits your needs. And if it is, just subscribe. Again, that is on a subscription basis, no love lost. It's not a heavy investment. If you go month on month, if it works out very good, you can continue. If it doesn't work out, you can pivot and change. So a bit of the agile mentality involved as well. So if you ask me, small organizations are in an advantage position because they can pivot faster. Who are you affecting? 5-10 people, 5-10 staff, as opposed to if you have 500 staff to take care of, then every change you make has a much bigger impact and much bigger resistance, and it's harder to move, like a big ship versus a small ship. So therefore I say, if you're small, please go and try. Start small, think big, and then as I say, go fail fast, and then you can learn more.
Yeah, I do agree. If we don't try, we'll never know. So a lot of us is in our comfort zone. Do we dare? Do we want? Always say, do we? Just try out. Since there's so much funding, if we never try, we'll never know. Who knows? The benefit that can actually outweigh, the amount of effort that we actually put in. Yeah. Then let me ask a different question. Totally different, because this question just come in which I think is actually quite good. See, we have about 10 more minutes. Let me ask Thomas. Okay. So just now you mentioned about vendors, mentioned about working with partners. So I think that's actually one of the things in which a lot of SSA, charities or NPO actually need to rely on. So I think this question is talking about when we work with vendors, we will potentially might need to give them access to the system. So as IT itself, generally the focus on not only just IT and actually security itself, what are your strategy? What have you actually put in place, to ensure that vendors will not be the weakest link? Because we rely on them, I know they are good. Sometimes it could be unintentional, sometimes it could be just a mistake. So internally, what are the process that you have actually set up to ensure that all these vendors are being managed properly?
Thanks, Joaquin. Okay, not an easy question to answer. Okay, I think in terms of making sure that people have access only to what they need to access, I think it has to start with your understanding of what data you have in your system, and then also in terms of what they need to have access, that can also change over time. All right, when the vendor is doing a project with you now, for example, let's say HRMS, then they will have to access all your HR record, right? Because they are at the implementation stage. But then when you move them over to the go live and then support and all that, then that's when their access will change, right? And of course, during the time when they have access to data which are confidential and private, then you need to make sure your NDA and all those things are in place, right? There's no two ways about it, because you cannot do an ERP project, for example, without the vendor accessing your your detailed records. Then how do they ensure that payroll computation is correct, for example, right? So no short answer to that. But then I think another area that I picked up was that you do have external users of your system even after going live, right? You may have specialists that provide input in certain case management, right? You might have other kinds of, let's say, counselor, right? Coming in to access, right, a certain case and then providing certain input. So that's also another area that we need to take care of, right? Again, I think for that, we are very careful to design the system, right, from a data modeling perspective to ensure that they only access what they need to access for their responsibility, all right? So they will not have access to the backend profile and all those things, right? So if they're there for the case support, then they are only able to see the case part of it and in relation to that case which they're supporting us on, all right? So that itself, I think, goes back to the point where you describe your business challenge, all right, and what you're trying to do. If it is case management, then we need to draw out on paper what kind of data are we dealing with, right? And then who has access to what, from people within your organization to the people outside, right? So all those we discuss, we talk about it before we even start the project, all right? So that we have different roles within the organization, right? Hierarchy and so on, right? And then external users. So all that we will have a clear picture about what needs to be in place for who. And then when we finally configure that into your SAS, for example, like Bruce said, anybody can configure, right? I mean, you just need your domain knowledge to configure, but you must know what, who needs access to what, right? So I think in our case, we actually do it that way, right? And then we continue to refine. Okay, so we might have other cases where people need to log in and submit a survey form, right? So even for a survey form, it's not just one way, it's two ways. So what data should we show them, right? When they log in, they validate, right? I must know that I'm a parent of this boy, right? That's why I can submit this feedback form, right? So there's certain things that we actually open up to them and so on, yeah. So, but it all starts with understanding what data is there in your system, all right? And then being very intentional in terms of, designing who needs access to what, and then configuring that design into your SaaS. All right. It might sound very technical, but it's actually not a technical thing. It's really about business users coming together and talk about it, right? Is this something that we want to avail to this group? No? Okay, then put it somewhere else. Thanks, Joaquin.
Thomas, I think that's a very good sharing. Let me share with you secretly. One of the most important control is to get the auditor in to help you. Okay, Auditors, anyway, auditors, we have seen a lot. We are never troublemaker. We have seen a lot. And with what you actually mentioned is true. Especially when we are down, when we went down to help our client, when we did an audit, we find that, gosh, the ERP system has been implemented 2 years, the vendor account is still there, they can still have access to the system, and they have not been even removed. And when we actually ask the question, have you actually got any logging mechanism to ensure that all these accounts are not being misused? They actually do not have it. Then I said that how do you ensure that the vendors are actually doing what they're actually supposed to do? So definitely there's a lot of housekeeping. I always believe in one of my slides that I mentioned earlier about internal controls. So internal control is one of the things is what we call a basic cyber hygiene. As auditors, out of my 100 clients that I have, I can share with you, 80% or 85% of all the MPO itself, they have the most common problem. Vendor account are not restricted. They have 24/7 access. Resigning accounts, are still there. Recently, I have just went to audit one of my client, and when I actually went in, they have a lot of volunteers. And the problem is that a lot of all these volunteers, have you actually checked whether are they still in service? Are they still supporting? And a lot of the accounts are actually not needed, and that is actually an additional cost to them. So also vendor management is one of the key things in which I find is key. I always like to use the word, the recent case study about this Hoki Pao. Have you read the story about the Hoki Pao, whereby the supplier kitchen was actually did not meet the hygiene, and because of that, the Singapore Food Agency actually shut down all the Hoki Pao 12 outlet. Okay, because of the supplier, not meeting the standard itself. So what does the story actually tell us? The story actually tells us is that if you don't manage our vendor well, if there's anything that actually goes wrong at the site, definitely it will impact us, not only just on the reputational kind of a area, and also governance, kind of a requirement. So definitely there's actually a lot. It's not only just IT control itself. Even if you talk about your CRM system, your finance system, accounting system, again, who have access what to do what, these are very, very common things that I've been seeing a lot of things on the ground. So thanks for sharing. I think that is actually very, very helpful. And we are actually left with 2 more minutes. And let me see whether are there any more questions that I would like to bring out before we actually pass it back. So far, I think it's good. So the last thing is maybe I'll ask Tian-Ning. Okay, since we got 2 more minutes, this is a think out of the box question. Okay, what happens if there's a power outage?
Okay.
You are going digital, right?
Yeah.
Digital requires electricity, right? What happens if there's a power outage?
Okay, power outages are not unheard of in Singapore. In that sense, there are chances of anything can go wrong. It will go wrong, Murphy's law, right? But I think again, this comes from certain maturity of the organization as well. We have disaster recovery plans, we have BCP plan, business continuity planning, and so on. Again, I don't want to go into the details, but sooner or later, as you progress, as an organization progresses in terms of building up its digital capabilities, you besides security part and so on, you do really need to go into these areas, the DRPs, the BCPs, ensuring that, what if one day it's not just electricity, what if one day, your Google Cloud or your Microsoft 365 is down? How are you going to operate? So these are the key questions that keep IT board members and CEO awake. And the sooner that you face such issues, address them, I think the earlier you can get better sense of things. Let's imagine again 1 year ago when the circuit breaker happens, how many organizations were actually scrambling to start thinking about how are they going to operate during the circuit breaker period. I think that was a wake-up call for a lot of organizations. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I think that is very good. You answered it perfectly good. That actually ends off today's session. When we move to the digital platform, there's a lot of consideration, a lot of strategy vision, communication with stakeholder, having KPIs, working with vendors, making it work, try out, So the ending bit will be, things will fail. And when things fail, how do we actually ensure that, there's a proper recovery process? There's a way, to ensure that digital in the end will not be a showstopper. Okay, we use it to be the benefit, to increase productivity, to save the efficiency, effectiveness of the system, but we do not want it in the end, to become a showstopper. And why did I actually brought up this question? Because previously I was being challenged, okay, when I was being audited. I asked one of my clients, why do you actually print out your BCP? Okay, print out, and I said, we are going green. Why do you want to print out? Then he said that, what happened if my Office 365 is down, my SharePoint is down? Okay, it's down, there's a BCP, I can't even access my BCP, how can I do my BCP? So with that, I'd like to conclude today's session, and many thanks to Thomas, Tanning and Bruce, for the wonderful sharing, and also thank you myself, for actually leading these panelists. I hope that everybody actually enjoy, this 2-hour session. And last but not least, let me pass it to Kisan, whereby he will actually help us to conclude the whole webinar. Kisan, over to you.
Thank you so much, Waikin. Very interesting conversations we had this afternoon. So, well, on behalf of the CNPL team, we'd like to extend our thanks and appreciation to the team of RSM Singapore, as well as from NCSS for working with us to bring this Bot Connect Forum to all our charities and non-profits. More importantly, this has been months in the making. In fact, we have multiple meetings, discussions, just to make sure that this session is useful, valuable, and more importantly, insightful for all our board members as well as our committee members. So thank you so much, Eileen, for leading in this whole series, Waikin for moderating this session, Bruce, Tianling, and Thomas for all your very, very open, candid sharing, as well as the highly interactive panel discussion. Well, so before I close off this session, I would like to invite all charities to approach CNPL as usual for all your board advisory matters as we continue to support all of you to strengthen your capacity and capability building. We want to ensure that we know that we are there with you on this journey to drive board governance as well as excellence. All right, so we will continue to bring you more forums as part of our Board Connect series. So please watch out for them and please sign up for them. Last but not the least, well, fellow leaders, as we move into phase 2 heightened alert tomorrow, all right, we wish all of you the very best. Stay well, stay safe, stay healthy until we can meet again, all right, in NDPC. So all the best for now. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. God bless.
Thank you.